That one lingers a little bit, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of many of the things that it's named, basically. It's not particularly dominant one thing or the other. It just kind of tastes like all of them mixed together. It's a little soury, a little like sour diesel-y. It's a little chemi. It's a little OG-ish, and it's a lot of flavor pack just because it's half flavor pack. So
it's kind of tough sometimes too. Like when you're coming up with these crosses and shit. It's like you kind of, it's cool to be able to kind of pick apart, and taste everything in that one strain, but oftentimes that means that it's not going to be as accentuated in any one direction, so it might not stand out on its own.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I guess more when you know what's in it, you're almost like blindly tasting. You know what I mean? You're feeling with your taste buds, and then you're kind of trying to grab at things. It's like a little bit different experience where I appreciate it more, maybe knowing what it is, than if I just smoked it, blindly.
Totally. Yeah, it makes you appreciate what it took to get there. Even if it's not necessarily that much more accentuated in any traits of the parents. It's like it's not more diesel-y than diesel, and it's not more motor breath or anything. It's just kind of a mix of all of them. And I mean, when you're crossing varieties that aren't very related to each other, you tend to get that pretty often, where it's a nice mix of everything, but it's not particularly standing out in one way or the other, because you're taking, even if they're not two IBL or inbred lines on either side of the equation, you're just taking two things that are not really closely related. So most of the progeny are going to be the 50% in the middle. They're not going to be the extreme ends of the spectrum.
That makes sense. And I guess that's maybe when you get something really unique and crazy, is when you do kind of hit the lotto and you get totally one end of the spectrum with, the other end of the other spectrum.
Yeah, if you make an F1 and find something really unique that stands out from the rest of the pack in it, you either got really lucky in finding the outliers in an F1 hybrid, or you had pollen contamination and something else gave a little bit of pollen, and that's why that one plant's really, really good, and then all the other ones are kind of really consistently whatever they are. And sometimes that's the best, accident that could possibly happen. Because you really don't know when you're crossing stuff together how good the cross is going to be. So you kind of just, using anything and getting good results is good breeding at the end of the day, to a certain degree.
Unless you only have one other thing going, you may not even necessarily know exactly what happened or exactly what it is at the end of the day. But what happens then, if it's so fucking good that you want to keep it?
Well, you may have never thought to make that hybrid. Let's say you have 10 different varieties in a room, and you're trying to pollinate with this one main plant, and 99% of the seeds in the room are that one. But then it's like this other plant that you don't ever want to think you are going to breed with, because it was like, I don't know, some old plant someone gave you that you're keeping for nostalgia, not because you think it's the one. And that plant unknowingly drops a little bit of pollen, Hermes a little bit, and then the 1% of the seeds in the room came from that plant. That's the one plant that you weren't planning on breeding with, and that's the plant that made the best plant that came from the seed, the 1% of the seeds from the 100% room. And so you just never really know, and that's why we kind of just shotgun approach. Just, I'll take anything and hybridize it and grow the seeds out of it. I don't have a plan that just because the parents are this or that it's going to be the best. If the parents are the best, you have a higher probability it's going to be a really good hybrid, but it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be better than using a sister to one of those plants in the same hybrid.
You think it could be a situation sometimes too where you kind of have a variety that you've been working with. You think kind of all the different ways that it expresses itself, but maybe there's something kind of lying dormant underneath that, and then, like you said, maybe you accidentally cross it with something else, or you just decide to do something randomly, and then something pops up that you're not used to seeing from either one of the parents.
That's right.
You think it's just like the right mixture?
Yeah.
Just
recombinant genetics. Just there's millions of genes essentially that are dictating all the traits in this, and unless you outcross with enough different varieties, you'll never really see the true range of traits that any of these plants could pass down. Like if I only ever crossed OG with only one type of plant, it doesn't mean I'm going to see the full range of expressions that could come from an OG cross, because it may require some other rare variety to combine with OG to get some dormant gene to finally turn on and make the next roadkill skunk or whatever it is. You just don't really know what recessive genes are hiding in any of your plant's DNA that, when given the right mate, will become a dominant gene in the progeny. And now look, feel, smoke, smell, whatever trait you're talking about having changed, becoming now a dominant trait in the progeny.
That's probably what you're talking about a lot of times when you say, oh, this one makes good hybrids. It's not necessarily like everything that we cross this to, it dominates and just becomes a slightly different version of that. It's like everything that we, a lot of the things that we cross this with, for whatever reason, just tends to produce unique hybrids that, may not even be reminiscent too much of either one of the parents, but just always seems to create something cool.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of ideal as a breeder, that you would have something that you can hybridize and it creates new flavors,
more variety.
Yeah, because that's that's how you can, only really way you can make a new smell or flavor instead of trying to reproduce a good smell or flavor. Because essentially that's your two goals with breeding in general, unless your goals are like monetary and you're trying to get bigger yield or something. But if you're trying to improve like qualitative in terms of smell and flavor, just as one set of traits, your goals are really going to be, how can I make this taste better, or how are you going to increase either the how often those genes are or how different they are. So like, let's say I'm trying to recreate OG. I don't want to cross it with something and then not end up with OG. I want to either recreate OG Kush in seed form, or I'm trying to cross it with something else to make something newer and better than either parent. That's the goal. The last thing I want is to take OG, cross it with something else, and get watered down OG.
Yeah.
Or watered down any strain. So, yeah, that's really the goal with breeding, in my opinion, is to either preserve a good smell or flavor that someone else maybe created, or a good seed you found, like lemon peel or any of those things. You just found a good one, and now I want to recreate it in seed form so I don't lose the genetic long term. But then I also want to cross it with other stuff, and I don't want to just recreate that smell. I want to make something. I want to make lemon pineapple now, or whatever, not just lemon. So
you got your lemon, now you want to make some lemon cream pie.
Whatever it is, yeah, you want to cook with your ingredient, not just preserve it. And then the last thing you want to do, like I said, is water it down.